The purposes of record keeping is just to see if there's any upsets in the system or if anything's going wrong. In the past, I've we always calculate the volume of flow going through our transmission line or our distribution line. In the past, I've noticed where the volumes have been increased by about 100 cubic meters a day, or that sort of thing. And we look around the distribution system, and we've actually found water leaks in those instances. So, and at the same time, we're checking pressures as well, right? So when I'm noticing 100 cubic meters of water being used, I'm also noticing our distribution pressure has dropped at the same instance. So again, that's a red flag. We get on the horn, we let everybody know, hey, we think there's a water leak somewhere. We've lost this much water, where normally we're only pushing 200 cubes, where yesterday we pushed 300 cubes. Again, maybe our pressures were usually at 500, where today it's at 460 kPa. So yeah, then it's something wrong there. With regards to anything else, like plant supply, maybe a hose was left on, we were filling a chemical. It'd be good to track. If you look at our usage for plant supply, I can tell you what days that we've actually made chemical solutions, because I know those days we're using about 200 liters, which is close to what our day tank is for a polymer, 200 liters, that sort of thing. I already mentioned dosage rates, and we want to actually keep track of those. So if there's something totally out of whack, we know our chemical injection pump is off, or our raw water flow meter is off, that sort of thing. Ultrafiltration units, if we notice one unit is using more than the other unit or treating more water, like you look at last week, we saw a train number 2 being used quite a bit versus train number 1. We actually had an issue with train number 1. It all stems back to our clarifier and the upset that occurred there. So we noticed that the UF number 1 was backwashing a lot more because it was getting high turbidity alarms, that sort of thing. So we weren't treating as much water then. And then we decided to do a recovery clean after that occurred, and I'm probably going to do another recovery clean today. With regards to the pressures, like I mentioned, we didn't do the checks on a nanofiltration unit, but again, this is basically just pressure checks, and we're looking to see if anything has gone up, risen to a critical point where we're going to need to do what they call a clean in place on the RO units. And it's a very extensive clean. It usually takes about a full day to do that clean in place on one train. And in this instance, we have 2 trains. So if we ever have one down, then we can concentrate on that one, work on the other one, and go from there, right? But for the most part right now, we're on top of everything. Our pressures aren't critical. Usually if we see 150 PSI somewhere, then we know it's definitely time to do a clean place at that point. Same thing with our pump run hours. If we notice one pump has been running steady when it shouldn't have been, then we know there's an issue. If you notice here, the raw water pumps are intermittent, anywhere from 19 hours a day to 3 hours a day, 5 hours a day, which is the weekend, which is normal. 19 hours a day is probably our Tuesday last week, which is the highest demand day, where the water trucks are running constantly. So our treatment unit is constantly trying to keep up on that day. Transmission pump. Well, we know transmission pump 1404 is our lead pump, and that one is always going to be running regardless, because the transmission line needs to maintain pressure. But if we notice something out of the ordinary on the other transmission pump, which is what we call the lag pump, if that's been running 24 hours, then obviously again that's going to set off an alarm in my head, and usually tells me that there might be a leak or there's something going on with the set points of the pressure, that sort of thing. So we monitor that for that reason as well. But yeah, basically that's why we do a lot of our dosage rates checks, our volume usage checks, our pressure checks, just so we know if there's something going on within the system, like within the plant or within the distribution system. We're gonna see it here regardless, right? It's a good indicator. Rather than actually physically seeing water bubbling up out of the ground, we should actually catch it here first before that occurrence happens. So that's kind of the reason why we do these checks. It's great to look back at some of the records, for guys maybe I'm not here in a year or two, But whoever's here then, they could look back at our records, because these will be filed for about 5-10 years or whatever. They could see what happened this time, next year, and he'll know what to expect and what the results should be, right? Versus just kind of going in blind and not knowing what the normal usage is and what the normal pressures are, that sort of thing.